In 3, 2, 1, action.
Tonight is Tuesday, May 17th, and this is the Penn Hudson School Board of Education Day. And all rise for pledges. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible. The board is already in session. We just left our executive session. So our next item would be to approve the agendas. Motion to approve the agenda. All in favor? Aye. Does anybody have anything to do with your recommendation for communities? Okay, so we're going to, next we have a very special event. We are in recognition of our valedictorian in history and our salutatorian book developed.
I had the opportunity last week to sit down with Mission Brooke, and we talked for a while, and audio recorded it, and that will go out later this week as a podcast. So we had great fun in my office. I learned a lot about them, about their career through HHCSD, and some really interesting stories and opportunities they've been a part of as they move on to their respective post-HHCSD career. So Brooke, why don't you start with Brooke, and if you want to introduce yourself and tell us where you're going, and maybe a couple of special memories from HHCSD you can.
Hi, I'm Brooke Fallon. I'm a salutatorian. I'm going to Cornell University. I want to become a pediatric psychologist, so I'm going into human development and family studies, and eventually learning into psychology. My fondest memories of HHCSD are definitely more fun things like football games, Spirit Week, and Spirit was this week. Super fun. But I also obviously prioritize academics a lot. I created some of my strongest friendships in high school. One of them, that's really special that I get to do this together. And I'm just very grateful for the friendships I made, the relationships I made with teachers too. That was super important and influential for me. So I'm just very grateful for that.
And I'm Mich Mystery. I'm a laboratory. I'm going to Northeastern University this fall, and I'm studying computer science and economics. So outside of college, I kind of want to go into tech and then quantitative trading on Wall Street. So super excited for that. And some of my fondest memories I have definitely have to do with the people. I think that's what makes HHCSD special. So whether it's teachers that, not only care about how you do in school, but how you're doing in your sports life, or whether you're having fun outside of school, and my friends, clubs, all that kind of stuff. I had an amazing time taking advantage of everything that I had to offer. So, yeah.
And just real quick, I don't want to. We'll do a little tease of our podcast, but you said something really profound about during the pandemic finding balance. If you could just briefly talk about that, it was really interesting.
Yeah, I think in the beginning of high school, I didn't balance properly. I kind of focused too much on school. Probably why I ended up here, but I don't think it's the healthiest thing for me. And over the pandemic, I kind of realized I had to take a step back from, stressing so much about school. And I realized that, even if I don't dedicate all this time, just, take a little bit more time for me, for my friends, family. I literally do the exact same, like my grades are just the same, if not better. So I kind of realized how important balance is, and I've been trying to take that into all facets of my life.
It's great to hear, and a very profound revelation. Yeah. Very important for all of us. Thank you. Thanks for sharing.
All right, that brings us to our consent agenda. Does anybody have anything to report about the consent agenda this evening? Very first. All right, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda as stated? All in favor? Aye. What happened to my hand for that? Yep.
And with that action of the board, a very important decision was made, an appointment of Lauren Scollins, who is now officially our next middle school principal, who will take over on July 1st. Lauren survived at least 3 interviews with at least 30 different people throughout the month of April and into May. And while Lauren is joining our school district, she is from not far away, but maybe 5 miles away?
All 12 minutes.
12 minutes. So we're going to let Lauren introduce herself and tell the board and the community a little bit about her and what drew her into the
Thank you so much. I'm so honored and excited to be here. For my first interview, I felt right at home, felt connected. Speak of the connections and relationships. Leaving my home of Croton, I knew that I wanted to find a school in a district that I felt just as passionate about and felt just as connected to. And from the first moment and the 20-person committee, I felt connected and really look forward to joining the family and the community. I do live close by and I'm always looking for something to do with my daughter. So I will be a part of the community during the school day and outside of the school day. I look forward to joining and eagerly maybe a little bit more about everyone.
And Lauren had just shared with me before the meeting that as she told her staff, as we had a dual announcement late Friday afternoon, that many of her colleagues from Croton are now going to be parents of hers at Blue Mountain Middle School, to your surprise.
So when I announced with my staff on Friday afternoon for UPK Programs, I had claps and cheers, and one particular mom who was overwhelmingly jumping up and down. Everyone was looking at why is she jumping up and down? She's going to be my kid's principal. It's a very exciting moment. I had many come up to me and say, well, 2 years on this one and 3 years on this one. So it feels right for them.
Congratulations. Thank you for joining our team. Lauren, available over the next couple of weeks. We're going to work out a schedule where she can meet some students and staff and some parents to help her launch right into the job on July 1st.
Congratulations.
And you don't need to stay, Lauren, so this is the time to hustle out of here.
Thank you.
You won't be offended.
All right, so it's turning out to be a great evening already. And we're going to follow that up with our items that are removed from the consent agenda, which you may not think is that exciting, but there are donations. So we have 2 of them this evening. One is a donation for $500 for the Barbara Katzenstein Scholarship Fund. The Office of Special Education has received donations in the amount of $500 to be utilized to pay for partial summer camp funding for students with significant handicapping conditions. That's a very generous donation yet again for the Barbara Katzenstein Scholarship Fund. Very happy to present that. And the second one is the donation of a weather station. Also very exciting. The Hendrick Hudson Central School District has received a donation from Mr. Steve Myers of a used weather station manufactured by Davis Instruments and is a Vantage View Pro 2 wireless unit. Which students are going to benefit from this wonderful weather station?
Well, we're not entirely sure. Steve is one of our lead technicians with Edutech, so he got into weather as a hobby. He has some very significant equipment, and he's downsizing camper equipment. So we're going to, he's going to educate us on how best to use it, and we'll match it up with the curriculum and with our science teachers and which curriculum.
Excellent. Can I get a motion to approve? I can't see the info. May I have a motion to approve these donations, please? May I get a second? All in favor? Thank you. That will bring us to our Westchester County School Board Association. Sorry, I might not have speaking board election and budget. And I'm like, that's not till later. Lisa?
Right, so tonight we're going to be talking about the Westchester County School Board Association annual budget and their election for officers and board directors members. You each received earlier the materials that go along with this. The thing to notice is that there is a 3% increase in the dues for each of the member districts, which is us. That averages an annual increase of $30 to $137, depending on the size of your district. So it's not a huge increase, but it is an increase. And so we're going to need to vote on whether we vote that budget or not. And then also there's a list of people, officers who are going to be their organization, board of directors. We have as president Scott Levy, he's from Byron Hills. Vice President Marjorie Schmidt, Potomac Louisboro. Treasurer is Patty Michalewski from Rhinebeck, and Secretary is Kate Batista from White Plains. And then we have a group of continuing directors with terms extended at various times. And then we have new directors and those nominees for elected seats in the nominating committee. So I think that's pretty much it. If anybody has any questions about any of those positions or budget. So. Okay. All right. So everyone who's in favor of approving, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the annual meeting ballot, which includes the Westchester Public School Board budget, because we should vote on separately. So let's say the budget first. All in favor of approving the Westchester Public School? Oh, need a second. Yes. Okay. Okay. All in favor of approving the Westchester Public School Board Association budget? And then with the officers for 22-23, the slate of officers and also members of the board of directors. And a second to vote on that. And then all in favor of that slate?
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for all the work you've done with Westchester Public School Board Association. What's the story, superintendent?
Yeah, a couple updates before we turn it over to Margaret, who has some visitors who will one is a COVID update. It's been a while since I've given a COVID update, but it is still alive and well in our community. We certainly have seen an increase over the last month of positivity rate among staff and students. We continue to send test kits home. We're going to do another run next week before the long weekend. If you're not receiving a test kit when you believe you should, and you know that you should receive a test kit when you get an email from me saying you're going to get a test kit, please let me know or probably more directly call your school nurse. We have plenty in stock, and so if you're not receiving them, it's not because of inventory. It must have been a technical issue, which we'll address, because I have heard that not all the test kits made it home to families. But please use those test kits. Some social events recently that we are suspecting led to higher than usual positivity rates, so we'll continue to exercise caution and try to move some of those events outdoors as best as we can. The other update is just really about our calendars. Now that we're back into, for the most part, in-person activities and opportunities, Carmen is collecting all of the end-of-year events. We'll send it out to our board trustees to approve RSVP to Carmen, but that would include graduation, moving up ceremonies. We have PTA events each of the next number of weekends. So hopefully the weather holds and participate in some of those events as well. So in terms of the board, you'll receive a communication from Carmen with an opportunity to RSVP, so the school is not. Nice to see you.
Ready? Okay. We are ready. I'm going to start with PSA before I bring my guests up. So if you're home and you have a kindergarten student, please get them registered for school. We are in the midst of kindergarten screening right now at the Hennepin Free Library. If you haven't registered and you have not made that appointment, I implore you to reach out to Dr. Cindy Kramer at Furnace Woods School. She is the principal at the pre-K 1 building next year.
They would love to make an appointment for you, meet with you and your little one, and then welcome you as a parent later on for some orientation and all sorts of things. So we want to make sure that we're encouraging our community members to get their 5-year-olds registered for school. I'm going to bring up to the podium, since we're starting with UPK, 2 people who are probably very familiar to much of our audience. So Dr. Jen Lefevre and Mrs. Tammy Emanuello are veteran kindergarten teachers in the district, and they raised their hand for our first pre-K program. So they prepared this PowerPoint, and they will talk to you a little bit about where we are in the process, the conversations that we're having together, the excitement that all of us feel about what's coming our way, and I will.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jen Lefevre, kindergarten teachers and now I'm pre-K teachers. And Tammy and I are just going to go through a little bit of what we've been doing to get the PK program up and running. And to say that we're very excited is an understatement. I personally have been pushing a pre-K in the Ashburn School District for about 15 years. So it's something very close to my heart and something I'm very excited about. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the program's philosophy. We're not looking to create a mini kindergarten. It needs to be something that honors 4-year-olds. Some of the children coming to our program will be 3. They don't have to turn 4 until December 1st. So there's a big difference between a 3-year-old turning 4 and a child who goes into kindergarten 4 turning 5. So part of the philosophy of our program is that what we do is we're going to be very developmentally appropriate for these children. Hands-on, play-based learning, very active learning, inquiry-based, using the children's interests as well, and to really preserve that sense of wonder. One of the things that we will be looking at is we think about developmentally appropriate curriculum, you kind of start from the top down and not giving them pencils and writing utensils until they're ready, developing the gross motor to the fine motor to the academic pieces. So how we're going to get there will be these developmentally appropriate curriculum that we decide to choose, what we build upon, anything we find probably going to tweak a little bit. And some of the big pieces are going to be looking at social and emotional learning, something we're seeing kindergartners needing. We need to bring that down to the 3 and 4s as well. These are what I call, they're called the soft skills, but they're really the most important skills. These are the skills they need to be able to go to kindergarten ready to learn. Being able to work together, being able to sit for 5 to 10 minutes to listen to a story, being able to wait their turn, take risks, try things. So these are all the things that we'll be working on within this program. And if you look down at the PowerPoint, one of the last things was to build independence and routines for learning and preparing them for kindergarten for life. We're really building life skills for these children, giving them what they need. COVID took away a lot of things for a lot of young children. We need to bring back a lot of the old school ways of doing things. Hands-on, getting them outside, getting dirty, and really building them up from that way. So the next part we're going to talk about is the curriculum research that Tammy, Margaret, and I have been doing. So we've been comparing different programs that we see, other UPK programs that are being used, both locally in New York and across the nation. So we've done some research, we've compared things to see what are developmentally appropriate, not all programs are, what will meet the needs of our children. And what we've looked at and we've narrowed down to a little bit is we've looked at creative curriculum, tools of the mind, Frog Street. We're looking into SEEDS, which is a program we just learned about on Friday from a woman who is part of Kidango, which is one of the California Bay Area's largest pre-K programs. They house over 70 different programs, and they are one of the programs that has the most developmentally appropriate programs, and they also run a wide range. So after speaking with her, we were looking into SEEDS and also Boston's curriculum. Boston's pre-K is another one that has been touted and has been looked at to be very developmentally appropriate and successful for children. And in addition to looking at all these programs, we have to see which ones meet the needs of our students, but also meet the New York State standards. And so we've been having Google Meets with people. We've met with Broad Street representatives in person. We have a meeting tomorrow with Tools in Mind, which is a program that is based on the principles of Vygotsky, which is a philosopher and a educational person that I have based a lot of my work on. It's a very social and developmentally appropriate way of teaching. And We've also met with some UPK teachers in the area. We spoke with one today from Wappingers. Wappingers are starting the UPK program in September. They're adding more programs for next September, and some directors and different program administrators. So we're doing a lot of legwork to make sure we have the best program in place in September for those children.
Jen mentioned, I'm Tammy Manuello. Some of you know me, some of you may not. I've been in the district for 23 years. I have the opportunity to teach kindergarten, first, second, third, and inclusion. So now I have to say that I am very honored to be an active member in developing the UPK program with Dr. Roller and Dr. Lever. It's been exciting and positive, and I have no doubt that it's going to be successful. And with that, I get to talk about the fun part, because I'm going to talk about classroom environment. So when we walk in, any of you walk in, we want it to be bright, cheerful. We want it to be, like Dr. Lever was saying, hands-on. The kids are learning from play. You'll see, hopefully, and we're trying to correlate both of our classrooms and order all the supplies right now of what we think we need. And we have been picking the brains of these people that we have been meeting with as well. What works best for them, what doesn't work best for them, what did you order that you don't think that you needed, what didn't you order that you wish you had. So we've been doing all of that. You will see a block area where the kids will be creating whatever it is that they feel that they would like to create that day. Hopefully we can label it and leave it up in the classroom so it's their work and their community. We'll have book nooks and geared around all the studies that we do. Again, we're still in the process of picking out what curriculum it'll be, but the book nook will correlate with that. Fine motor stations, you know, the tweezers and getting them to really focus on maybe squeezing out a sponge or putting together Legos or snap blocks, creating letters. Art center, we got some really cute art easels that are slanted and appropriate for their age, whether they're 3 or 4. We'll have the sand and water table, which we hope to be able to use it inside and outside, again, working with their fine motor. And math area, well, we hope to have a big math area with all of the, you know, shapes, colors, working on numbers and creating them using you know, Play-Doh or whatever it might be, so that they're exploring and learning on their own through play. And literacy area, the same kind of thing, using, having our, you know, Play-Doh to form all of your letters, or having the blocks together that you're snapping together, still working at pulling everything together, such as fine motor and the literacy area. Writing center, obviously different writing tools, but hopeful that we'll have, you know, them drawing pictures and being able to tell a story to all of us when they walk into the classroom. Dramatic play area, you know, each time that we have a different study happen, we hope to change it up. So you might see one week it's a flower shop, and the next week that it's a doctor's office or a veterinarian's office or a dentist office. So that's a hopeful for our classroom environment. And then we're talking right now, again, we haven't developed what this daily schedule will look like, but it's our sample. Upon arrival, there might be some students who are having breakfast, and there might be some students that are going to an interest tabletop activities, and that's the time that we'll be able to walk around and see how they're all feeling for the day and get to know the kids, and how we might be able to help them or assist them for the day. Then we'll go up to our morning meeting, you know, calendar, months, dates, counting, poems, songs, and all of that fun stuff. Read alouds we'll do as large group instruction, and you know, they have time for them to be able to turn and talk and get to know each other and explore big questions in a fun way for the younger ones. And then we'll move off from our read aloud to our literacy small group instruction center. So we'll have, again, hands-on and teacher instructed centers where our TAs will be also doing an instruction, and they'll be able to have some independent work as well, geared to their skill level. And then we will move to outdoor time, gross motor, and then to lunch recess. We are talking about what lunch will look like. We've talked about family style. We've talked about going to the cafeteria. We're not quite sure what that will look like right now.
They will be buying lunch, so will they stay in the cafeteria or will they come back to our room and have families there? We're not sure so much yet, but we're working on it. Quiet time will gear it towards each individual. Do they need to rest? Do they need to just have a quiet time with a book on, or just have time with one of the teachers? What do they need? That's what the quiet time will look like, and then we'll be doing a read aloud during that time as well. And math exploration. Again, we'll probably do a large group and turn talks, and then we'll be coming together in small group activities. You know, shapes, colors, sorting, numbers, all of that. And then we'll have recess, or well, we're not sure, but lunch recess or recess will come after math. We're not sure yet. Working on those motor skills twice a day because I'll need it. Snack time, how that will look, we're not sure. Like, will they bring it from home or will we supply? It's a work in progress. And then we'll do interest centers at the end of the day, and we'll wrap it up with maybe say goodbye, a song that will say see you tomorrow, whatever it might be. And so it's been a fun adventure, and I'm very hopeful that it will be a strong program next year.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions for our wonderful teachers?
So this sounds really exciting. Just on the curriculum research, when you looked at different curriculum, did you look outside the US at all, at other countries that may have successful students, have successful education programs? So maybe thinking out of the box a little bit?
No, that's a good idea. Thank you for research. For everything that I've found has been in the States, but we can do that.
Sorry, just a quick question for maybe people listening, but this is kind of crazy, but it's the mom and me. Is there a potty train requirement for September? Okay, because there are threes that still struggle.
Yes, they are not required to be potty trained. So I want to just say thank you, Corey, because I can think of a fabulous field trip that we can take. It is well known and well researched that Italy has the finest preschool programs in the world. And I think we could visit some of the Maria Montessori original sites, Emilia Reggiano. Yes, so get those plane tickets going.
So Mark, your Zoom is broken? Is that right? Oh, okay.
Right, yes. Anyway, that was a great suggestion, and we will look abroad, but you know, Italy does have a great reputation for that. So that is, and we certainly all know we have Montessori right here in the States. That does require specialized training, but it doesn't mean it isn't something that we could take a look at and certainly model. So we are going to switch gears a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize we hadn't finished questions.
I just want a reminder of the lottery fees. Could you go over that with me?
I can. Okay, so we are rapidly approaching May 19th, which is Thursday, is the deadline for any local collaborators to step forward and state their desire to partner with us. If we have no collaborator, or if we have collaborators that can't check all the boxes when we go through their report, then we will go back to pulling the lottery from the original slated folks that responded back in April, and that will be Friday. If we have a collaborator and they check all the boxes and meet, and by the way, these are New York State requirements, not ours, then we will reopen the application process to the rest of our community. We'll explain the difference between the two programs for our families. We will give the people who've already applied a chance to consider both and tell me which one they prefer, and we will welcome new applications, pulling the lottery on June 2nd. You're welcome.
If I could just expand on the curriculum conversation briefly. Bill and I went on tour last week and visited one of the senior centers to share some of the details about our budget. And part of our conversation was around pre-K, and some of the seniors were able to share their grandchild's experience in pre-K, and some shared their own experience in pre-K, and it was all over the board. So I want to ask a couple softball questions that are probably softballs to this group, but in terms of maybe folks watching or listening at home. So New York State has a viable curriculum that if you're going to accept the state's money, the expectation is you are teaching the New York State learning standards, which now go down to pre-K, correct?
Yes.
And that those are posted and they're public, and that the companies we're looking at, or our field trip to Italy, our goal is to line up resources to match the expectations of that curriculum.
Yes.
But it's not what it used to be. And that's, you know, a little bit of what Bill and I heard was, well, when I went to pre-K, and, you know, it was a history lesson for me, but do any of you, can you walk us through just a real brief timeline of when pre-K became more legitimized as a opportunity, you know, that school districts were to or encouraged to consider? Because just in our conversation, you know, from 60 years ago to now, I got the impression, you know, just engaging with a group of I don't know, there were 30 or 40 of them. It was interesting for me to see how quick the pendulum swung. And then I even shared with them Picantico, Enrique lives in Picantico. They're starting a program for 3-year-olds. You know, so this needle is moving, and it's moving quickly. But just real quick, a brief, it doesn't need to be terribly accurate, but how this became a more legitimate opportunity for school districts to consider.
Well, I think the two of us would say that it was always legitimate. Both of us having started in early childhood. I would say, I don't know if it was the first iteration of the Common Core, like way back, that included pre-K standards, but certainly the second version made a much bigger deal out of the fact that by that point, the city was already like gung-ho, and so they said, okay, you know, it is absolutely still play-based and learning center-based. Interest centers, as Tammy mentioned earlier, looking at developing the whole child. But there were clear expectations that, again, I think Jen said the right thing. We're not looking for a mini kindergarten experience, but we are looking for our little guys to be ready to learn when they come to kindergarten. And a lot of that is social and emotionally based. So we will, you know, we've done, I think, our homework. Every time we meet with somebody, we always ask them, are you New York State aligned? And all of the vendors know that there are New York State pre-K standards. And yes, if they can't check that box, they're not likely to get much interest from this particular state. So I don't think we're the only state with pre-K standards, especially now, but that would be it in a nutshell. We do want, you know, we all have the same philosophy. We need to be outside a lot. We want to make sure there are multiple opportunities, and they have great classrooms because their classrooms open up to the outside. They don't have to go in the hallway and then disturb people. They have a door that goes right out to the side yard. So we're talking now, like, should we have maybe some tricycles and the big fat wheel bikes out there for them to play with, and obviously helmets and things. So we are trying to think of a very rich, but also developmentally appropriate day for kids. And it's a long day, a full day for 4-year-olds, some of whom will only be 3 when they come to us. So we do have to understand that, you know, I know a lot of parents asked us in the Q&As that Cindy and I hosted about nap time. And we said, not really nap time per se, like you used to take a cot out and everybody would lie down, but quiet time for sure. And, you know, you may find kids who will, you know, find a cozy spot and nod off, hopefully not a teacher. But we do want them to have an opportunity to kind of turn the lights down, play a little soft music, read to themselves, or maybe with a buddy or color or something, just to chill. So I think we have the right team in place. So we're all excited about what this can look like.
Margaret, can we just talk about how Kinder Camp fits into this, and if you have any updates on that?
Kinder Camp, well, you see, she's the Kinder Camp expert. Brought her here tonight for multiple reasons. So you want to talk about Kinder Camp?
So Kinder Camp is, we're focusing on the kids that haven't gone to preschool yet, because they're the kids coming to kindergarten. So it's for next year, I don't know what it's going to look like. For this year, we do have Kinder Camp happening, and those will be the incoming kindergartens. We're going to be utilizing local preschool space since we have so many moves happening. So that will stay. If I do a good job with the UPK, we're kind of pushing Kinder Camp out. Like Kindergarten Camp was the Band-Aid for UPK. When I started it 15 years ago, it was in lieu of having the UPK program because we didn't have enough money to do that. So it's always been back here, and now we're getting to do it. And the other beautiful part that we have this year is Tammy and I are both kindergarten teachers. We know where the kids have to go, and we're seeing the problems that the kids are coming with because they're having inappropriate pre-K experiences or not having any pre-K experiences. So that's why it's very important that they're developmentally appropriate, because we do know, damage is done. When kids are doing things before they're ready, it's more detrimental than anything. So pushing a kid before they're ready, it's not getting us anywhere. You might see some positives early on, but you lose them by the time you get to third grade. And that's what we want to see. We want to see growth that continues.
So we really need to go through this cycle and see what we come up with, especially if we do have a collaborator. We'll be able to take more of our kids in the community into a program. And then we may look at, the end of the year and say, how many more children that will be coming to us in K were not able to have this experience, and perhaps that's a small kindergarten camp program. I think we have to just get through a couple of next steps before we know where we'll be at.
Yeah, just continuing on the kinder camp, we've discussed this a couple of times already. I'm happy to hear you're not just going to write it off the kinder camp, because my concern is, we're not doing the pre-K for all students, and the kinder camp, that's based on lottery, and the kinder camp is based on need. So unless we expand, which I'm more than willing to look at that and encourage that pre-K, so if we're servicing all kids with pre-K, yes, then kinder camp seems obsolete at that point. But with just a small fraction, I would be cautious in going that way based on how the two different groups of students are selected.
Yes, and definitely if we have a collaborator, that will be a different conversation than if we don't have a collaborator. And we know we're leaving out a larger group of kids, some of whom will still go to pre-K somewhere regardless, but many will not. So then we want to be able to offer that if we need to next month. So as we go through this year together, we'll figure out what the next right thing is to do.
Thanks. Anybody else? Thank you very much. Dr. LaFavor. Are you staying up for the next one?
Yes, I'm on board tonight.
Oh, well, welcome. Thank you for presenting.
All right. Okay, so our next presentation is about Words Their Way. It's a new phonics spelling word study vocabulary program that we have acquired in the district. I just want to give you a little bit of history, and then I'm going to ask two of our teachers who obviously have worked with the program to talk a little bit and maybe answer questions. So how we started. In the dark ages before COVID, I think it was 1819, we kind of had some informal conversations together about what we were doing with K2, which is using foundations, and not doing at 3-5. So there's always been, I'll say, a requirement for teachers to have word study as part of their literacy block. And we had a more formal program at K2, and something that the teachers were working on creating based on what they were teaching and what they were seeing from kids writing at 3-5. So we came together because people said, I'm not so sure, maybe we need something. Other people said, I'm not so sure that this program meets all the needs. And so we created a word study committee. Next slide. So we had a lot of people. I did not give you the slide, I think, with all the names of the folks who were in this. But there were a lot of teachers across K-5 who came forward to be willing to look at what is available and what do we know about these programs. At the end of the day, we determined that it would make sense for us to do a K-5 pilot. And so we had teachers across the 3 buildings and across the 6 grades, you see their names, step forward to pilot one of 3 programs. So we had everybody K2 teaches foundation. So we kept that as a control group. And then we asked other teachers, and Jen Fever was kind enough to pilot Words Their Way. Nikki, who's actually here to talk about Words Their Way, it just dawned on me, you were the TC pilot, right? Yes. So she's got all kinds of experience. So we ran the pilot, and then we ran into COVID. So we had a year of the pilot, and as we came back into 1920, that was half a year that we got jammed up with COVID. Next slide, please. So we got together last spring, I think it was, right around this time, and said, okay, can we make a recommendation? Do we need, more time? What do we think we have to talk about? And the consensus was Words Their Way was the program of choice. Interestingly, again, I offered that it could be something at K2 and something else at 3-5 if we thought that was appropriate. But overwhelmingly, folks wanted one program that spanned all the grade levels. So we met over the summer with a few teachers that had been part of the work to determine how best to roll this out, because people have been a little stressed during COVID and hybrid instruction and then all kinds of crazy things. And we didn't want to add to their plate. And we recommended a 3-part rollout. So if you wanted to come on board, there was a September training. We had PD in the district, we bought materials. Next group wanted to take a breath. They came on board December, January, same thing. We bought you the materials. We had the PD people come back. The third group just finished getting their PD. So by September, and that was the goal, that for next September, everybody would have had the training, would have the materials ready to go. And that's where we'll be in September. So this year, people have been using it, some since the beginning of the year, some since mid-year. I'm going to guess the people who are just stepped into the training last week, they may play around with the word inventory, but I don't know how much actual instruction you'll get to in the last couple of weeks of the school year. Go ahead, Greg. So Meg McConville, a fabulous grade 5 teacher from BB, was also part of the pilot and part of the group that spoke up about, her success with the program. I can't read that, so I know it's in your handout. Those are Meg's words about the program and her experience with it. And she's been a very strong supporter of it at 5th grade, has worked with her colleagues at BB to help them through how do you set it up, how do you work it. Another interesting facet of Words Their Way is the organization of teacher materials. She's been very instrumental with helping people get comfortable with it and feels that she's seen a tremendous difference for her kids as readers and writers. And unbeknownst to me, another fabulous 5th grade teacher, Rita Manning, who's retiring this year at Frank G, has told us that she always used the Words Their Way spelling inventory, but never had the program. But she used the inventory assessment to help her work with her kids in her classroom. So I'm going to stop talking now and turn it over to the people who really know how this works best. So we have kindergarten and we have 2nd grade to tell you what it feels like in the classroom from their perspective.
Thank you. Hi, this is crazy. It's not plus the height. Can everyone hear me? Okay. Good. So as Margaret mentioned, I'm a 2nd grade teacher at Frank G. Lindsay. I came to the district in 2019, and I basically piloted the TC program, which is what we use for our reading and writing curriculum for phonics. I was not a huge fan. And the reason that we kind of chose Words Their Way is because we found that the other phonics programs like Foundations and like TC were not really able to differentiate for the needs of our learners. So it was more like when I was teaching TC, it was a whole group lesson and we follow the I do, then we do, then we do model. But I would be teaching a lesson on R-controlled vowels, and I had some students who already knew all their R-controlled vowels, and I had some students who didn't know their short vowel sounds. So it just didn't fit with the different needs of kids. And the reason that Words Their Way is so wonderful is because it allows for differentiated instruction. So what does it really kind of look like? Basically, students are able to analyze the words and the spelling patterns and the sounds and discover similarities and differences. They're able to apply the spelling patterns that we're learning to similar words, and they're able to identify these spelling patterns in their reading and also apply them when they're trying to spell words in their writing. And the best part about Words Their Way is that it is grouped based on skill need. So as Margaret mentioned, spelling inventory is the best part about this. Well, not the best part, I shouldn't say that, but it is very helpful because we give it to them in the fall, we give it to them again in winter, and we give it again in the spring. So it's kind of like iReady in the way that we're hoping to see progress over time. And the way that it is it's a spelling test. So it's 26 words for the elementary spelling inventory. And then what the teacher does is they analyze the data or the features that they're looking for in each particular word. So we're looking for, does the student know the initial and final consonants of their words? Do they know short vowels? Do they know digraphs? Do they know their consonant blends? So we score the data, we look at the mistakes, but we look at also what they do know. And then when we score it, we stop after they've maybe made 2 mistakes, because that shows us that we need to definitely review whatever that is. We look at the whole class together and we say, okay, I have a bunch of friends here who don't know their consonant blends, TR and BL. That's where we stop. And then when you find the place where you stop, you slide your finger right up the inventory sheet, and basically it tells you what spelling stage they are in. So there is emergent, there's letter name alphabetic, there's within word pattern, and then there's syllables and affixes. There's a lot of books, but wherever they stop, that's the workbook that you're going to start in. And the program gives a lot of freedom because you don't have to start at the very beginning of the book. You can go to the sort that has the consonant blends when you find 4 students who need consonant blends and begin there. So it directly targets exactly what that student needs. So you make your groupings, and the way that we make our groupings is based on the need, as I mentioned, and you have 4 groups. And what we do with those 4 groups is we have like a 5-day cycle. So I should show it to you. I'm just gonna show you this. For those that are here, can see it. It's a grid, but it's basically a slideshow that I show my students. And it basically is by day, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I have my groups, and each group is doing something different each day. Now, this takes time to roll out in the beginning because these students are not familiar with Words Their Way. They've been doing foundations or they've been doing PC. So at the beginning, it's a very slow start. But what we do is we talk about with the whole group, what does a teaching day look like? Let's go through it. Everyone does the same sort together, so we do a teaching day. Then we do another day where it's a word sort day. We have a word packet that we do the following day. So the students in the class are working throughout the entire week on the same spelling pattern that you've been talking about, and they get opportunities to read the words, say the words, write the words, and it's really, really helpful because I'm seeing great progress in the way that they're writing, because they're able to identify these words in reading, and they're catching, oh, that's the same spelling pattern we had last week. Or they're sounding out a word and they're hearing or, and they know they want to do O-R-E and not S-H-O-A-R for sure. So they are able to apply the spelling patterns. So a teaching day, I don't have the materials, but I will go through what it is. There are a lot of materials, but it's also very nice because you get to pick and choose kind of what works best for you, which is one of the best parts about the program. They have a big book of rhymes. So we started teaching day with a rhyme. So for example, I might be teaching the word families A-N, E-N, I-N, and U-N. And there's a poem that goes with that sort. So everything is correlated. We'll have a poem and we'll talk about the poem. It's called Grand Slam. We'll talk about what does Grand Slam mean? Okay. We'll talk about last week, we talked about word families that have A-T, O-T, and I-T. And we'll take a look at the sorting sheet. The kids get to rip out the sorting sheet. They get to cut out the words. And it's very engaging. You have a small group in front of you. We'll talk about, okay, what are the headers on top of our sorting sheet? What do you think we're going to sort our words by this week? So it's a discussion. We do it together. We talk about any words that we think they may not understand. This week I had prank. No one knew what prank meant. So we talked about it, and then I used it in a sentence. Kids had to use it in a sentence. So now the kids are understanding the meaning of the words in context. We will sort together, and then they were able to sort by themselves. So that teaching time takes about 20 minutes maybe. And while I'm teaching with one group, my 3 other groups are doing something completely independent with their sorts. So once it gets started and going, it's very self-sufficient. Kids are very independent, and it gives them ownership over what they're doing. They really enjoy it. So for example, if I'm doing group 1 and it's a teaching day, group 2 may be doing a word sort day. The word sort day means they have to do a word sort with their sort at least 3 times. And you'd be surprised at how quickly they do it. And they say they're done. And I say that definitely was once, but keep going. And then they will buddy up with somebody in the group. And then they will have one person will read the words. The other person has to find their word and sort it. So now it's kind of like a blind sort. They have to hear the word. They have to find out where it goes. They might buddy up and do a writing sort where one person has to say the word, the other person has to write it in their notebook. So they're getting different kinds of practice with the same sorts. That's a word sort day. On a word packet day, I use a supplemental resource that is correlated with the program, and it's a packet, but it allows them to write the sorts. They have to identify what the spelling pattern is. They have to figure out whether or not there's an oddball and explain that. So for example, I was doing R controlled vowels, and we had O-R-E and O-A-R and O-R. And then there was W plus OR, because when OR has a W in front of it, it can give the sound and not or. And then there was oddballs that were F-L-O-O-R and P-O-O-R, because they say or, but it's O-O. And we taught them that O-O says ooh or So they have to kind of identify why it doesn't fit. And so in the word work packet, that's not a side note, the word work packet has the opportunity for them to write the sort. They have to do a word search. They have to use words in a sentence and fill in the blank. They have to highlight and circle words that identify that specific spelling pattern. So again, throughout this entire week, the same sort, just many different things. And then after a word work packet, they finally get to glue their words down for their sort. The teachers can use this as kind of an assessment. I had some students in the beginning of the year who were on picture sorts and not words, because that's where they were in the beginning of the year. And so I use that kind of as an assessment as their sorting sheet. Do you know where you are supposed to glue the words? And then I use that for other kids that weren't writing words. I gave them a spelling test. I said the words and they had to write them down. So it works when you have low-level children. It works when you have kids who are right where they are. It works when they have kids that are higher. The books are great. They're kid-friendly. They love to rip them out and cut them out. And they really like to use the materials. But it is labor-intensive for teachers in the very beginning, because there are a lot of materials. I want to have the sorts ready as the kids have the sorts, so it requires a lot of cutting and ripping and laminating on my end. And the kids need things to hold their materials in, their little words. You'd be very surprised how quickly children lose a word that's this big, even when they write their name on the back of it. So after a word work packet day, the next day would be a testing day. And so while I'm doing a teaching day, the kids who have a testing day are working with each other to study and test each other. And then after I'm done with my teaching day, I say, okay, group 3, it's your turn for a testing day. And then they'll number 1 through 10, and I keep that data for myself. I use that data and I look at the spelling test, not to send them home to parents, but to say, these 3 children still need help with the UI. And that's what I take, and I look at, okay, let's review UI the next day. So we're using the data that we're getting from the spelling to then drive instruction further based on what we're seeing. It's really kid friendly. It's differentiated in such a great way for the kids, and it really works very smoothly. I can focus on my one group teaching, and I know that groups 2, 3, and 4 know exactly what they need to do for the rest of the time. I'm trying to think of what else I want to mention. That's about it. I mean, it's a really great program, and I feel like when I piloted TC, it just didn't work, because there was too many students that needed different things, and TC didn't understand it. I was required to kind of modify and adjust, but Words Their Way does it for you. And it's really nice. And I think it goes to say something that if we have a program that works really well in kindergarten, and they're familiar with it in 1st grade, and then in 2nd and 3rd, all the way to 5th, it's going to be really nice and much easier for the teachers to implement, because the kids are going to be familiar with it already. So I think it's a great program, and the general consensus is that everyone really liked it compared to Foundations and TC. So, you know, I found a difference in my students with reading and with writing, and they really seem to enjoy it. So,
Did you have a question specifically on this?
I was just going to talk about the kindergarten perspective.
I just have one chart. So you were talking about how you do the assessments, and then you know, like, if a student is having problems on OO or OU, does that stay in the program? So like if it's in June and that student is going from 2nd to 3rd grade, is there a way to track it so that the 3rd grade teacher then knows?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we take the spelling inventory sheets, and we have the 3 spelling inventory sheets, and I keep that in their file. So you can see where they were in fall, where they were in winter, and where they were in spring. We hope that if they had a problem with OO in the fall, that they don't have a problem with OO in the spring. But, and also if I'm seeing that there is a problem with that vowel team, I'm still working with that child to get them to a place where they can successfully show me that they mastered that spelling pattern. But I definitely think it's a conversation to have with the teacher for the next year. Hey, this is where they were struggling in phonics. Make sure you watch out and pay attention to these special spelling patterns.
Yeah, that's great, for especially with
Princeton plan, right? Moving schools.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just wanted to add from a kindergarten perspective, if you listen to the day of the second grade, you're probably thinking, how can this program actually good for kindergarten as well? Because it is set up very similarly in the way it works, but on the kindergarten level, it's still, I'm going to go back to developmentally appropriate. That's why I looked into it. That's why I wanted to be part of the pilot. And when kindergarten, we do the spelling test. Now we're the first one to admit, when I went to the training originally, and they told me I had to give a spelling test to kindergarten in the fall, I'm like, you're crazy. There's no way I'm going to give a spelling. That's not appropriate. I'm not going to do it. And I sat down and did it in small groups, 4 kids at a time. And in September, you may get something like the first word is, I think one of the ones is dog. And one of the kids drew a picture. Or they might give a letter, or they write numbers, or they do different things. And that's telling you something because, again, after we're using the program, we do another assessment in winter, and you see the growth. And the difference in my kids this year, so this is the first year we've been able to actually use Words Their Way the entire way together, the way it was meant to be. And my children are writing like ways that I've never seen before in kindergarten. Being able to tell you, oh, that's a digraph. That's what we need. Oh, I hear this sound. And in kindergarten, to begin with, it's pictures. We are kind of setting the foundation for the other grades, setting up the kinds of sorts. There are object sorts. And what I like about it, and that I do this a little bit different, is I let the kids sort them first before I tell them what the categories are or what our sorting patterns are, to see what they do. And sometimes they come up with sorts that are better than what the sort is supposed to be, or they come up with different ways. And that's where you get that creative thinking. And what we've noticed, or what I've noticed over the last 2 years, is just vocabulary and concepts. They'll see a picture of a barn, and they'll call it a farm. To them, that red barn, that barn, typical barn picture you see, it's a farm. They don't know the difference between a farm and a barn. So it's that type of very, finite, small pieces that I'm able to pick up from assessments, from working with them, that they don't understand. They've globalized different concepts because they're seeing things on screens and they always see the same pictures representing the same things. And so being able to differentiate with the kids, I had a little boy coming in who could read anything you put in front of him. So I said, great. When I did the spelling assessment, I was like, this is gonna be fabulous. He couldn't give me any letters. He can read everything you put in front of him, but he didn't know a bug was big. And that was what I was like, wow, we gotta really focus on his phonics skills. He doesn't have that. He has this other piece, but he hasn't now applied, he has to apply these skills to actually writing letters. And so, I was listening to the second grade thinking, wow, the kindergarten it's doable and it's great. And we see growth and progress and it's developmental. It's very hands-on and really just, again, it's discovery. It's letting the kids kind of investigate things and then you got them when they're going on the path that's not the way it's supposed to be. Sure, yeah.
Connecting this to the previous presentation, does this provider Words Their Way?
There is a pre-K version.
There
yes.
is, okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of how I found out about it. Words Their Way's been around for quite a while. And it was always an early childhood learner. So there is a pre-K version that we can incorporate into.
First of all, thankful to you because this is fabulous. Lisa Simon.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good. And the kids love it. And I think it's going to become very popular with teachers. I think we're going to see a great increase in our kids' abilities to do reading and writing. We start in kindergarten all the way up to
pre-K now.
Pre-K.
But you're also not doing the way.
Exactly.
Place for foundations.
I was just going to say that. Thank you.
Yeah, things Words Their Way, foundations now, your secondary class, right?
Exactly. So, we, as I said first, we do have foundations. We've been using foundations K2 for 7 years. And I would be the first one to tell you that it was my intention for foundations to come out of regular classrooms, gen ed classrooms, and go only to AIS reading. So I got schooled over the past 2 weeks by some of our primary colleagues. And Nikki said it best. There is, for those of us who do this for a living, there is no one program that solves the needs of every kid. And the truth is that the more the teachers know and the more the teachers can reach for, the more successful our kids are going to be. So a few of our colleagues sat with me and said, here's why we want to keep foundations too. So we will be allowing, that's a silly word. We will be using foundations in our K-2 classrooms as the backup or partner to Words Their Way, because there will always be kids for whom Words Their Way is not enough. So that's our approach going forward. And we will look at the pre-K piece as well. But thank you, ladies. That was fabulous.
Thank you very much. That was really enlightening. Jane, do we have anybody signed up to speak this evening? Okay. So I am going to forego reading the guidelines for addressing the board. If you would like to speak in the next meeting, they are available on our website. You can contact Carmen Cott as well for our guidelines. That will bring us to our committee reports. Anybody have a committee report? All right. Board comments or new business? Hold on.
We had a facilities meeting on May 9th, and I don't know what's Mr. Merlini and Mr. Caroline went over some of the things that are happening with our facilities and the directions we're intending to go. We got a report on the update on the auditorium at the high school, which we have all the cable now, which is really, really exciting. It's all there. It's not in place yet completely, but the cabling is there. And the lighting is in place and working, which is also really good to hear. And do you remember anything else yet, Corey? Yes, that's for the audio. So the speakers are in place, and all the parts of the audio are there, and they're working on the cabling, but there's been so much use of the auditorium recently, they can't get it in place yet. But it should happen soon. Really soon, right? Did you want to add anything, John? We also talked about the EPC, which is the energy performance contract with the automation, and they're about 95% done with the audit on that, and hopefully we'll be getting some recommendations from them soon. And the other thing was kind of an update on the BV cafeteria. The plan is to be able to move forward and do that that construction in the summer of 23. So not this summer, but next summer. Building condition survey, that is, it's what?
The RFP.
The RFP, yeah, they've just submitted a request for proposal for that. And yeah, no, that's an update.
Yeah, typically we have the building condition survey every 5 years, but there's been a change because all the schools used to be at the same time. So the state changed it to stagger them, then COVID hit. So it's been a while. It was 8 years. 7 years since we've had one. And it's going to be another couple if we go with the state, another couple of years if we go with how the state has scheduled us. So we're looking to alternative ways that we can hire someone to do it and utilize that to prioritize the needs of our facilities over the next year or two, instead of waiting for another 2 years to begin this process. Because we feel there are some things that need attention, but the right way to do it so we can get state aid on it and comprehensive overview of the district is the building condition survey, which, as Enrique just alluded to, it's went out for RFP, or we're working on that.
The RFP for the architects is going this week. And we're planning to hire them. Well, we want to have another facilities committee beforehand, and then we're planning to hire them after the whole board knows, after the second, in the second Board of Education meeting in June. That's when we will bring the winner for the board to approve the architect that will do what we would call an original audit, and that audit they will be the same architects that will do the BCS like that. That's how we're planning to do the RFP. So any architect will say, okay, you know, I have 2 jobs and I might get a $30, $40, $50 million job if we decide to go ahead with a capital project down the road.
Thank you, Enrique. So it's the beginning of a potentially exciting process to get some things taken care of in the district that we might want done. But this is going to list out and help the administrators and us prioritize what things should get worked out. So that's a pretty big deal, and I'm glad we accelerated it. That was I think the administration and the facilities committee all agreed, you know, there's too big of a gap between this process.
And also, Bill, we discussed Anton presenting in the next facilities meeting the priorities for the prepared reserve, so we can approve it. We can have the hearing and approve it and work on them during the summer too.
Great. It sounds like it was a very productive meeting. That brings us to board comments and business.
Question for is Joe. So all the principal meet and greets have been completed for the elementary schools. Is there a list, or is there going to be some feedback from what they have received questions or concerns?
Yeah, some things are being generated. As you would imagine, they're much grade level specific than they would be if we weren't in the principal plan. So Margaret and I have some meetings coming up with the group as a group, and then separately to try to chip away at some of their specific ones. For example, we're talking about pickup and drop off at Frank G. And how we can best stagger the cars and the buses to make sure parents who are driving their children. Right now, we estimate, or Liz estimates, about 30% of elementary children do not ride the bus. So we think that might be a little bit higher next year. I know 3 principals are going to send out a survey. It's not binding because you can't deny child transportation. That will help alleviate some of those concerns. So each of them have a little different themes that came out. I think and they're going to report in the next board meetings. I don't think in any of their 5 principal meetings there were more than 35 parents. Some of them went to different meetings and divided and conquered, but so for 5 meetings, 35, 150, maybe round up to 200 families. So they have some good data. We're going to process it with them and then see where the themes are across these schools or where we have to divide and conquer. Those are some examples.
Thanks.
Who can report on what in our budget meetings?
True. Enrique and I did an 8 meeting show, the budget roundtable. We did 4 in-person meetings at the free library. We did 4 virtual meetings, and we'll find out in an hour if our meetings work, because we did not have any customers at any of the 8 meetings. So maybe our budget presentations and our communications efforts and everything, eliminated any doubt or any question. But yeah, for 8 hours, Enrique and I stared at each other, but we had good bonding. But no, we didn't have any participants.
We plan vacation.
Yes, where we went on vacation.
Thank you for doing that and making yourself available to the public. It's a little disappointing that nobody took advantage of it. That brings us to the end of our meeting. Can I get a motion to close? Can I get a second? All in favor? Aye. Our next meeting is June 1st or 2nd. Anyway, it's early in June. June 1st. That's right. Okay. 7 p.m. right here. Bring your